Tonight, we're going to talk about the 5 mistakes people make when painting their homes and how to fix them. Let's see if it works. Yay. Okay. So this is me. My name is Gelormini. I'm also known as the Paint Diva. A lot of people know me by that name. My sons, all friends all call me the Paint Diva. They think it's funny. I'll tell you the story of how I got that name. But I'm a professional color consultant. I'm a Benjamin Moore color expert. I was featured on their Experts Exchange. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've worked with literally probably tens of thousands of people, and that's people and homes. That's not counting all the rooms that I've done. So I always tell people, I say, how often do you paint? Every 8 to 10 years, 12 years. Today I was at somebody who hasn't painted in 20 years. I said, okay, but I do this all day, every day. So it's easy for me, not so easy for everybody else. This is how I got started back in the 90s and early 2000s. I used to paint murals. I put some pictures up here of some, if you're from New Providence, you may have seen some of these. The one all the way on the left is Providence Barn Kitchen. That's me up on the scaffold. That is the building that used to be McGrath's Paint Hardware, where I used to work. And then he moved over to South Street, and then a restaurant bought the building, and I painted the mural, and that's the picture on the bottom left is me with it finished as a restaurant. The top 3 photos is a mural at the firehouse that I did it was a 9/11 memorial. It memorialized the 343 firefighters that had passed away at 9/11. And then in the middle, that's the connection in Summit. That's a Cinderella mural that I did there in the nursery. And then on the bottom is the most recent is the New Providence mural in the center of town. That's the one that people probably see the most, right? And I've also done the library here. So when we're done, if you want to take a walk over to the children's section, you'll see some murals that I did over there. Long time ago. This is all a long time ago, except for the New Providence one. After I was doing murals, and I used to do a lot of faux finishes, the faux finish fad was going out of style. And I was up on one of those scaffolds about 20 feet in the air, and I almost fell off. And I said, you know what? That's it. I'm done. I'm over it. I'm not doing this anymore. And I walked into McGrath's paint store, and I had done murals in all 3 of his kids' rooms. And I went in just to get paint for my own house. And he says, oh my God, I can't believe you just came in here. I need somebody to work here because one of his competitors had hired an interior designer to work in the store and help people choose paint colors. He says, I need somebody to do that. He said, come work for me and help people choose paint colors. And I said, okay, that's all I have to do. I don't have to lug around ladders or paint cans anymore. This is great. So I went to work there, and I just developed the color department there. These are pictures in the newer building, but in the old one where I had done the mural, I had him put up a half wall and columns and put curtains in the window, and I wanted to make it more more of a homey environment, something that attracted women into the space, because I told him, I said, listen, this is a place where contractors come and they're all just picking up paint. It's not really very comfortable for me as a woman to come in here, but so I would like to make it homier. So he listened to me, he did it, and people started coming, and word started to spread that there was somebody there to actually help you choose paint colors. Like, the people were so surprised. They're like, wait, you're here to help me? You're kidding. And then I started hearing stories about another paint store in another town. I won't say where, but she was so mean to everybody that they called her the paint Nazi. Oh. And that's if you've ever seen the Seinfeld episode of Soup Nazi, okay, that's what it's a reference to. And they would tell me, how'd she say, you don't know what you want, leave, don't come back until you know what you want. No paint for you. So after about 6 months, one day somebody walked in and she says, oh, so you're the paint diva. And I said, oh, wait a minute. Are you confusing me with somebody else? She goes, no, that's a paint Nazi. She's the mean one. You're the nice one. I was like, okay, all right. As long as we have that out of the way, all right, then I'm fine with that. And then over the years while I was there, they would make up nicknames for me. They called me the paint doctor, the paint guru, the paint genie, the paint whisperer. That was my other favorite. But the Paint Diva was the first one, and I decided to roll with it. And it actually turned out to be really good marketing, because after I left, I was there for 11 years, and I left 8 years ago, going on 9 years ago. I have a long Italian last name that nobody can pronounce and they can't remember. So they can't remember my life, but they remember the Paint Diva. They're like, where's that Paint Diva? How can I find her? And they look me up and they find me. So during these years when I was working there, people used to make mistakes and they would come in and they'd talk to me and we'd try to fix it. Okay, so that's kind of where my theme for the night comes from, is I made mistakes, I learned from my mistakes, and I learned from the customer's mistakes and clients' mistakes, and I learned how to fix it, and that's what we're gonna focus on tonight. So here's one of the things that I had heard. One time, a lady walked in and she said, I wanted to paint my walls a soft buttery yellow, but it looks like somebody threw up lemons all over the wall. What's the problem? So that was kind of funny, but I knew how to fix it because a couple of weeks earlier, what was happening was people were trying to use, they would put up like a beige color, something that would have like Powell buff, and they would come back to me and say, it doesn't look beige, it looks buttery yellow. That's not what I was going for. Aha, okay, so I learned. A beige with yellow undertones looks like a buttery yellow. A regular yellow, even if you go all the way up to that top of that strip, it still looks too bright. Now, I want you to pull up these 3 strips that I gave you. For those of you that are on Zoom, I gave them strips that look basically like what you're looking at on my presentation there. So yellow tint, when you put it in the can, that's my picture all the way in the top right. The yellow tint is so bright, it hurts your eyes. So even if you went to the lightest one, if you take out the strip here, that's the really bright yellow, even if you go all the way up to the top of the strip, people think if I get the lightest one, it'll look soft. No, it's still too yellow, okay? So the way to make it buttery is to add beige to it. So now if you look at this light creamy, it's a creamy yellow, a beigey yellow, right? Usually people will look at this and they think, well, that's not really yellow, that's beige, right? But now what I want you to do is take the blue strip and put that next to the yellow one, and look what happens. All of a sudden it gets more yellow. Can you see in this light? It's it's not very bright in here, but did you know, pull it away and look at it, and then put it next to the blue and look at it and see, did it get more yellow? Did it seem to look more yellow than it did when you just looked at it by itself? Okay, so what's happening is, yellow is warm, blue is cool, and when you put them next to each other, they exaggerate and it draws out the undertones. All right, I'm going to show you another example of what used to happen and some mistakes. All right, if you look at these pictures, oh, yeah. Okay, the one in the middle, that's a cool gray, and cool grays can turn blue because daylight is cool and blue. So in a room with daylight, that's going to look blue. All right. So what would happen is somebody would come in and say, I wanted to paint my room gray, like the picture all the way on the right, but it's turning blue like the one in the middle. What's the problem? Right? It's because the cool grays can turn blue in the daylight. So when somebody comes in and they choose a blue, just like the throwing up lemons, okay, can turn to yellow, blue can turn to blue. So the picture all the way on the left, if that's, sometimes they were going for the picture in the middle, the soft blue, but they ended up with the picture on the left that wasn't what they were going for. I learned that what they really need is a cool gray with blue undertones. That's how you get the softest blue. Okay. Here's another problem that came up. This is another quote. A woman came into the store one time and she asked me, she says, does anybody paint their bedrooms red? I said, well, not usually. Why? She says, well, my husband told me I should pick a color that puts me more in the mood. I said, well, I can't help you with that. Paint colors, yes. Moods, not so much. All right. Let's talk about choosing whites and off-whites. Actually, can we play that video?
Ever thought choosing a paint color would be the easiest part of decorating? Think again.
Why are there 100 different shades of white? I don't like any of these.
Sure, you could chase every trend, or you could actually figure out what works for your space.
Okay guys, I just found the perfect neutral. It's called Agreeable Beige.
Agreeable? This color doesn't agree with anything in this room.
Oh my god, the blog said Whisper Gray would be the perfect gray.
Were you going for minty?
No.
It's perfect for a bathroom. It looks just like toothpaste.
No.
Stop letting bad advice turn your home into a color catastrophe. It's time for the Paint Diva Method. You can either take advice from someone who painted their own house once, or from an expert who has worked with tens of thousands of clients, helping them choose the perfect colors for their homes. Say goodbye to living in Pinterest fail and one-size-fits-all advice. The Paint Diva Method will teach you how to choose colors that fit your style, your home, and your life. Stop chasing trends. Start loving your walls. No influencers required.
All right, perfect. Okay, so choosing whites and off-whites. This is what's really hot right now. I choose off-whites all day, every day. And if you look at the kitchen in the top center, hopefully you can tell on here. Sometimes depending on the screen, you can't really tell. The ceiling is whiter than the cabinets. Can you see the difference? Okay, the ceiling is ceiling white. The cabinets are off-white. They're more like a white duck, like a creamy white. Where the kitchen on the bottom, those cabinets are whiter. And the bathroom is they're off whites. They're all off whites, basically. And then so there's 100 different shades of those white. How do you find the right off white? What happened to my clicker? Okay, hold on. Let me try this one. There we go. No, it's not the right slide. Hold on. Hold on. Going backwards. Yeah. Okay. This is not, something's not right. I just skipped. I feel like I just skipped. Well, okay, well, we'll see what happens. All right. If you look at those, the strip, that's paper white. That is the same color against every single different color wall. I don't know why this is that out of order, but I'm just gonna roll with it. So if you'll notice, all the way in the top right, paper white looks blue because it's against a wall that has yellow undertones, okay? But if you put it against a stronger blue, which is the third one on the top, okay, it looks gray because it's against a stronger blue, okay? So this is why when you sample, if you put the samples up on a wall that has a color on the walls, it's gonna affect how you see those samples, okay? We'll get to that more, hopefully. All right. Here is my, okay. All right, OCs are the off-white color. All right, OC means off-white color in Benjamin Moore. It should be OWC for off-white colors, but I always say they didn't ask me, so it's OC, right? You can see on the bottom right section where it says off-whites, that's where you find those whites. Where in that commercial, she was standing there and she was saying, why are there 100 different shades of white? That's what she was looking at, is all of those off-whites. Now, this is an insider tip and trick that I know only because I worked in the store. A lot of the off-whites repeat in those other sections of those beiges and grays and yellows, okay? So the top one here, I didn't bring the right hand back, but if I here, okay, so like on this strip, the top one, the lightest one, a lot of times they'll repeat over in the off-whites. So if you look at my example on the left, the pink arrow is pointing to Horizon number 1479. It's the lightest one on that gray strip, but it repeats in the off-whites. There it is again as OC, I can't read the number, OC something, 49 or something like that. It's the same name, it's the same color, but it has a different number, okay? And that's because it repeats. So I learned to, if I want to really see the undertones that are in some of these off-whites, I learned how to look it up and pull out the whole strip so that I could see the whole strip going all the way down to the bottom. Does this start turning green? Does it start turning yellow? And it's a quick Google search, look up Horizon Benjamin Moore, 2 numbers will come up, and there you know, and that's how you'll find it, okay? Okay. So when you're choosing these off-whites, you need to know the difference between warm and cool. So that's what I was just showing you about how this yellow turned more yellow as soon as we turned it, put it next to the blue, because yellow's warm and blue is cool. Everybody wants neutrals. And a neutral is either gray, beige, or grayish, which is in the middle, okay? Gray is cool. Anything toward the blues is going to be cool. Beige is beige, it's warm, it usually has yellow or peachy kind of undertones, and then grayish falls in the middle. So grayish I consider a warm gray, so it's in the gray family, but it's a warm version of gray. That's where we are right now. When people want to ask me, you know, what's in style right now, and everybody knows that gray is out now, okay? Gray's really not out. It's the dark, cool grays, like in that cool gray strip. If you look at kind of the third one down, it's those kind of colors that we're not really doing anymore. But the grays, all day, every day, we're doing the grays. So we've just gotten warmer, really. And I'm happy to say that everybody's tired of no color and everybody now is hungry for color. So I'm finally having fun as a color consultant. People are like, I'm tired of the gray. Let's do something else. They're good. So am I. Okay. Next. Okay, so here's what I'm talking about with the warm versus cool. So the kitchen on the left is a stark white. It's a cool white. That's what a lot of new kitchen cabinets are. They're very white. That's a cool white. But the kitchen on the right is off-white. It's warm. And the trim on the top is probably white dove. And you can see it against the ceiling. It's creamy. It's got a little bit of yellow in it. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why this matters. There, okay. Look at the trim around that window. Look how white it is compared to those cabinets. And look at the ceiling also, okay? The cabinets look beige because we put a stark cool white against those warm, creamy cabinets. So this is one of my pet peeves, don't mix your whites. And I mention this over and over and over again in my book, do not mix your whites, and this is why, okay? So sometimes and it's many times that I've gone into a kitchen and people, before I get there, they tell me, before I get there, my kitchen has white cabinets. And when I get there, I look and I see that, I say, your cabinets are not white. What do you mean they're not white? And then I hold up white next to it, like that white piece of paper, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're right, they're not white. They're off white. All right. So this is what I'm talking about with the don't mix your whites. So I work with a lot of people that are renovating. Okay, they've gone and they've chosen their cabinets and their countertop, and then I'll look at them and I'll see, like that top left picture, the cabinets are not really white, they're off white, they're creamy, but they picked a stark cool white for their countertop. And I'll look at them and I'll say, okay, just so you know, your cabinets are gonna look yellow. What? I don't want yellow cabinets, I want white. And then, well, you can't put these two together then, you know, one of them has to change. Well, I already ordered the cabinets. I said, then go back to the place that's selling your quartz and go get a creamy quartz. You don't put the white quartz, right? So this is something that I like to really, you know, hit home with people before you choose any of your materials. The kitchen on the bottom has a cool gray and white countertop, and they put warm beigey cabinets, which is fine if you want your cabinets to look beige. But if you're going for that white look, they don't go together, okay? Now, I have to say that though, that those taupey beigey cabinets, that's in now. Okay, people are getting tired of the all white kitchen. And now if you're on Instagram, you're gonna see a lot of that, those taupey beigey cabinets. But you know, designers and Instagram is usually always way ahead of everybody else. So usually people, it takes a couple of years to see it over and over again before they, you know, like I just had a client the other day, I did her colors probably 10 years ago, and she said, and we did colors, we did blues and yellows, and she says, I'm thinking I want to go gray now. And I said, well, you missed that. That train already passed. We're gonna have to do something else. Okay. All right, my clickers, I guess my batteries are going to, all right, I'm gonna try. See, the problem is the screen share button is right over my clicking button. That's the problem. Okay. All right, here we go. So if you do have that taupey type of, okay, where I showed you the cool gray countertop on top of those taupey cabinets, this is the countertop that you want, okay? This was at a client's house. I left my white notebook on top of it so that you could see that it's not white. It's kind of that grayish taupey color. So it does exist. That's the color quartz that you would want, okay? And then the inset photo is a different house. That house was flipped. And whoever the contractor was did a very good job of choosing the backsplash tile that's creamy, that goes with the creamy countertop, it goes with the taupe cabinets, but he made one mistake. He picked the wrong paint color because the walls are a cool gray and they look blue. And the new homeowners don't want blue walls. And I said, well, actually, they're not blue. They're actually gray, but they just look blue because everything else is warm. Again, it's warm and cool. We're mixed together. So I had to pick a warm grayish color for them for the walls. All right, let's talk painting cabinets because this has been big for a last couple of years. So a lot of people decide, I don't want to do a whole renovation on my kitchen. I don't want to spend $50,000. I only want to spend like $5,000, right? I'm gonna just paint my cabinets. And since they want the white kitchen, they say, let me just paint my cabinets white. But they don't change the countertop or the backsplash. This is what you end up with, okay? And to me, I won't let them paint the cabinets white because there's nothing white in there. White is too white against all that beige. And my eye now goes right to that old backsplash in the countertop and it looks old and dirty. Okay, so to me, white doesn't work if you're not gonna change the countertops, okay? So you may ask, well, what do I do then? There you go. Okay, these are some of my clients. These are before and afters, okay? None of these cabinets are white. The one all the way on the right is a taupey grayish color. See how it's much softer now? See how the tumbled marble looks much better against a grayish. So it's almost the white kitchen, just not quite. It's off-white instead of white, okay? The kitchen on the top has a beige backsplash, so we did beige on the walls and we did grayish. I usually will go darker on the island. The kitchen on the bottom, we did a greenish blue on the island because a greenish blue is a warm blue that goes better with the orange and the warmer tones in there. And the cabinets are creamy to go with the creamy backsplash. They made one mistake there though, that they didn't listen to me. They did the white trim against those cabinets. They should have done the creamy trim. See the French doors, right, on that bottom one, right? So they should have gone creamier on there, and then the cabinets would look whiter, okay? And again, this is if you're going for that all-white kitchen look, then you want all your whites to match, okay? You don't want to mix warm and cool.
What about two colors kitchen, for example, top counters?
Yeah, if a different color on the top and on the bottom. Yeah, that's fine. My point is, look at your countertop and your backsplash before you make that decision and make sure that what you choose is gonna work with that, okay?
Any recommendation for dark gray granite countertop?
Yeah, so
Because
we'll get,
pictures, I see like light colors, not dark colors for countertops on your examples.
they're like black.
Close to black, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. What I don't do is I don't do a dark island with a dark countertop, because then to me it's too much dark, right? But I would, if you have a dark, the question that she's asking is what if she has a dark countertop? And so these taupey grayish colors are fine with a dark countertop. I just wouldn't do like a really dark, like in this picture, the picture all the way on the right has a really dark, kind of a granite gray, like a slate gray. I wouldn't put that with a dark countertop because it's too dark compared to everything else that's light, okay? So the two kitchens on the left, you can see the before above and the after below. So if you look at the island, you'll see that they did change to quartz, okay? Big difference, right? But they did not change the floor. They still have the beige tile floor, right? So I wanted to make sure that the floor looked okay also. So that's why we did that grayish taupey color still, because I don't want the floor to look old and dirty. I mean, I'm very practical when I do things. I'm like, we don't want it to look dirty. Even if it is dirty, we don't want it to look dirty, okay? We want to make it work, right? So they have green islands because the green just works better with the beige floor. And then the two on the right, they have the hardwood floors that they changed. So they were able to go all white. Now, I'll tell you another lesson that I learned, a mistake that I learned from the job all the way on the right. She wanted that dark grout. I usually always match my grout to the tile, but she saw that look and she liked it and she wanted it. You can't tell in that picture because it's kind of blurry, but the tile's crooked. And you really notice it now because of the dark grout. And if she would have done the all white grout, you wouldn't have noticed that, So that kitchen has since been gutted and done over again. Okay. All right, so mistake number 2, match your stuff, not someone else's. All right, I get this a lot where people will say, oh, my friend used Revere pewter in their house and it looks beautiful. I want to use Revere pewter. Well, do you have the same furniture? Do you have the same lighting? Just because it looks good in her house doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to look good in yours. So it's really important to make sure whatever color that you want to try works with your stuff, right? So the bathroom pictures, that's straight out of my book. that was a client, where this was a complete renovation of her bathroom, and I'm just showing you what works and what doesn't. So the picture on the left is putting a cool gray, but the tile is not white, it's taupey, grayish, right? So the better color is more of a grayish color. A warm gray goes better with the warm tile rather than the cool with that, because it's making the tile look yellow, and that's not really what she was going for. All right. Okay. Here's what I'm talking about, okay? If the picture all the way on the left, that sample is Revere pewter. And if you look at that Revere pewter next to that couch, Revere pewter looks green and the couch looks pink. So it's not the right color for that living room, because what happens is you put it up, it's like, well, why does my couch look pink? Or the walls look, that's not what I wanted. I wanted a nice taupe color, right? So it's really important to look at the stuff that's in the room. So in a living room, I always look at the couch first. And couches are usually neutral, they're usually gray, beige, grayish, something like that, right? So I'm always gonna make sure that the color looks right. And we're not making the couch look pink or purple or something that you didn't want it to be. You know, there's many times I've looked at a couch, I'm like, there's a little bit of purple in this, but I don't wanna tell them, I don't wanna tell them they have a purple couch. So I'll just pick a cooler color and go with it.
You can get those large samples in that picture.
Yeah, ask me that again, remind me at the end, I'll tell you where to get those samples, okay. All right, choose the right trim color. So we talked about that a little bit before, where I showed you the creamy kitchen that had the white trim around the windows, okay? The picture on the left, that's something that just drives me nuts when I see that. That kitchen has creamy cabinets. They're glazed. A lot of times those cabinets will come with their own trim. So you can see the dental molding up top that's glazed. They put that all the way around the kitchen, all the way around the top, but look what they did around the door frame. Why? Why? Why do we put a bright stark white with off-white cabinets like that, the creamy, right? So when I come in there, I'm gonna match the color of the cabinets, and sometimes I'll go lighter. It can be lighter. It doesn't have to be as, beigey as that, but it should be in the same color family with the same undertones. Just don't put a cool white with a warm creamy cabinet. Okay, the kitchen on the right, that was a different house, and every house I go to, everybody's the same. Everybody wants the all-white kitchen, okay? And she said, my cabinets are beige. So I color matched them, as you can see, and they're actually not beige. They match Navajo white, which is the color in the middle. Said, well, this is really easy. All you have to do is paint your trim Navajo white, and now your kitchen is gonna look off-white, and they won't look so beige. I mean, look how dark they look compared to that white trim. So it's a much easier fix, and husbands like that answer, because the women always want to paint the cabinets. They want to pay someone thousands of dollars to come in and paint the cabinets. And I say, no, all you have to do is paint the trim and the ceiling. That's it, much cheaper. This is just another kitchen again. So this is what I'm talking about. This has the creamy cabinets, and the trim above it is a little bit lighter, but it's that same creaminess. It's the same creamy undertones, and the same thing with the ceiling. Okay, so there's no bright white in that kitchen. Now, out in the hallway, it switches over to a bright white. I mean, look how different that is. Could you imagine if we had that bright white trim in that kitchen? It just wouldn't work. Right? And normally I do like the trim to flow room to room on the whole first floor of the house. But it doesn't always work. So it depends on the colors you do in the other rooms. But in the kitchen, like we might have white trim everywhere else, but sometimes in the kitchen, we can't do the white because it doesn't work with the cabinets. Okay, now I lost the screen share thing. Oh, yeah, there you go. Okay, you can't see that, only I can. All right, good. It's blocking my button. All right, there we go. Okay, so if we go back to this this is the same kitchen that I showed earlier with the creamy cabinets with the white trim around the window. Okay. This is a young couple, just bought their first house. They brought me over to choose colors for every room, and I turned into the dining room and I saw the kitchen in the distance, and I already knew what the answer was going to be when I asked her, but I said, how do you like your kitchen? I don't like it. How come? I want white. I want a white kitchen. So same thing. I told her your cabinets are really, they're off-white. All we have to do is change the trim, but not only in the kitchen, but because it's attached to the dining room, it's the bright white trim in the dining room and the ceiling that's making that kitchen through the doorway look even more yellow. So we changed the trim in both rooms. And just by doing that, it's gonna change the whole look of the space. And that kitchen was, that was the husband that was very happy that he didn't have to have the kitchen cabinets painted. All we had to do is, and even the wall color even works. The wall color was fine. It's just the trim that was the problem. All right, mistake number 4, let's talk about sampling. So these are some of the photos that I told you that I take. I do a lot of new people, building new houses, renovating, okay? And this is what they do. They throw up all the samples on the wall. Now, in the new construction, the bottom right, it's not so bad because they're starting on a nice clean white wall, a nice white primed wall. So at least there's no undertones behind it. But the problem is when you line the colors all up next to each other like that, it draws out the undertones and you hate them all, is what happens. It's like, and I look at them right away. I'm like, that's too pink, that's too yellow, that's too green. No, 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 that one. Okay, all right. Okay, so before you put the samples on the wall, the first thing that people do is you go into the paint store and you look at the chips, right? That's what they call these things, they call these chips, okay? What I've seen people do is they'll take the chip, they'll walk over to the window and look at it in the bright light in the window. And I'll ask them, what room are you painting? My master bedroom. Okay, does it have bright light like that window? Oh, no, it's the darkest room in the house. I'm like, well, then why are we looking at it in the bright sunlight? Because that's not how it's gonna look in your house, okay? And most stores have that bright fluorescent light as well. Your lighting your house probably does not look like that, like it does in the store. So the first thing you have to do is get these chips, bring them home, look at them in the room that you're painting and look at it in that light. And these pictures down here, it's feather gray, it's the same color, and look, it looks completely different in each one in the different lighting, okay? So those things that you have to look at, like I showed you before, is when it was the same color against different colored walls, and now it's in the different lighting, so that can change the colors as well. So what I tell people to do is, if you want a blue, get blues, but also get cool grays, because you never know what's gonna happen, get variations of that, get brighter ones and duller ones, bring them home so that you can see how they're gonna look in your light. I mean, if I'm there, you don't have to do that because I already know. I just do. Okay. So the one all the way on the left, that color is gray, but it looks blue. Okay, after she put the sample up on the wall, I got a phone call. That gray that you picked is not gray, it's blue. I said, well, did you put the paint right over the gold walls? Yes. I said, that's the problem, because it only looks blue because you put it up against a yellow wall. Okay. And then the other thing is the sample in the center. The next question that I ask is, did you do 2 coats? No, sometimes they only do 1 coat and the old color's bleeding through. And then the orange wall, it's the same thing. It's like, multiple coats, they're all lined up. They're all on a strong color wall. It's like everything wrong that you could do, they did, okay? So that picture second to left, that's the wall that I was showing you. See, now it looks gray because I put a piece of white paper behind it so I could block out the gold so that you only look at that color. And so since she had already painted it on the wall, we got some paper and, tried to block out the yellow color so that she could just look at it alone without the yellow, the warm and cool up against each other, okay? The third photo, I'm okay with that because it's basically light, medium, dark versions of the same color. Okay, so we're not mixing warms and cools and blues and greens and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty much the same colors, just light and dark, right? So that's fine because they're just trying to decide how dark or light do I want the color to be, okay? But the best way is around the corner, right next to the window. You can see that strip. That's how I always tell people to sample. Put it right up against your white trim and look at how your color is going to look against the white trim, not against anything else, right? But the best way really to sample is all the way on the right. It's called Sampleize. Write that down. That's your question that you're asking me about the big sheets, okay? Sampleize are peel and stick. And that was in the commercial that I showed you in the very beginning, where she says, I don't like any of these. She grabbed the peel and stick sample and she ripped it right off the wall, okay? I have an account with Sampleize, so if people work with me, you can get a discount on the Sampleize. They're not expensive. They ship them overnight. They're great because they're actually painted. Okay, so it's not just like a photocopy like these. These sometimes the color varies. If you look at the color in my fan deck And then when you pull one of these chips out, sometimes they're a little off, so which one's right? You don't know until you get the paint. Also, sometimes the pint is a little bit different than the gallon, but what's good about Sample-Eyes is they're actually painted on, they peel and stick, but I had her put it on the white poster board because I wanted her to see it against white, right? Not straight on the wall, because you put it straight on the wall, it's the same problem. So you want to block out the old color. Okay. Number 5, choosing the right sheen. These are actual houses that I've been in. This was done by previous owners. I walk in and I just this when I see semi-gloss on the walls. Semi-gloss does not belong on the walls. Semi-gloss is for the trim, not the walls, okay? We do not need shiny walls. And believe it or not, you don't even need eggshell anymore. About 15, 20 years ago, eggshell was replaced with matte. So the sheens go flat, matte, eggshell, okay? So flat's not really that washable. I've been in homes where people have tried to use a magic eraser and they're pretty much taking the paint right off the wall, okay? Flat, the only place I put flat is on the ceiling, because usually people don't touch the ceiling, okay? Unless it's a basement, you have teenage kids that play hockey or bounce balls off the wall. Usually your ceilings don't get touched, okay? So flat's okay. Or a room that never gets used, like a formal living room and nobody ever goes in there. You wanna use flat, that's fine. Flat is the cheapest, it's the builder grade. If you buy a new house, usually the builders are gonna spray flat everywhere, okay? Which is fine for the first, year or two, but then we start getting scuff marks, not much you can do about it, okay? Eggshell used to be my go-to when my kids were little. It has a little bit of shine to it and you can wash the walls, really well with that. When I painted murals, when I did Italian restaurants, everything was eggshell because food splatters on the wall, you want to wipe it off. I will use it occasionally in a bathroom. Because, water, toothpaste, things like that splattering on the walls. Or if a kitchen does not have a backsplash, if it doesn't have the backsplash tile and water or grease is gonna splatter, that's where you use eggshell. But, I don't even use it that much because most kitchens now have backsplashes, okay? And matte, like I said, matte looks flat, it's not shiny, but it's washable. So that's my go-to finish now for pretty much every room, even in the bathroom, believe it or not, okay? So I used to still always use eggshell in the bathroom until Benjamin Moore came out with this paint. It's called Aura Bath and Spa. Aura is their top of the line paint. It's self-priming, no VOCs, no odor, okay? It covers really, really well. But the added benefit to it, it has mildew side in the paint, which means it kills the mold and the mildew. So you have hot, steamy showers, okay? Anybody has like teenagers that are in the hot shower for like a half hour and the water's dripping down the walls by the time they get out, right? And that's a perfect atmosphere for mold and mildew on the ceilings and the walls, okay? The Aura kills that. So that's my go-to for bathrooms, and it comes in a matte finish. So we can finally now use, we don't have to have shiny walls in the bathroom, all right? Semi-gloss is like the go-to for trim. However, the past few years, I've been using satin sometimes on the trim. It's a little less shiny. If you put in a brand new kitchen, the cabinets are not as shiny as semi-gloss. They're a little less shiny. They look more like a pearl or satin finish, okay? So if it's a complete gut reno job or new construction, I will use the satin to match the cabinets, and I match the same white and the same sheen goes on the trim, and then we can kind of put it everywhere. But if we're only doing the kitchen, then I'm probably just gonna use semi-gloss, okay? And gloss, a high gloss, it's rarely used. Gloss used to be oil-based. They did away with oil-based years ago. It's not good for the environment, so don't really use gloss much. Occasionally, interior designers like to pull it out and they like to get fancy, and they do gloss. But the gloss shows the imperfections more. If you don't have great looking, And so one of the reasons why we don't want shiny walls is because, as you can see every imperfection on the walls. Right, you can see every old spackle job, every nail head popping out, hopefully you hire a good painter, they take care of all that, they get the walls spackled and sanded down to a nice smooth finish, and then it shouldn't be an issue, I used to get snarky sometimes though, like when I worked in the paint store and the painter would say to me, well, you know, I don't like eggshell because it shows the imperfections. I'm like, well, if you do your job right, there shouldn't be any imperfections, there shouldn't. So the chart all the way on the left just kind of shows the sheens as well. All right,
Both, Benjamin Moore and Sheldon Williams, they have the same shin.
the same sheens. Yeah, they do. It'll be called flat matte, you know. It depends on which paint you choose, which grade of paint you choose. Okay, the question was, does Sherwin-Williams have the same sheens as Benjamin Moore? If you buy, so Regal is the everyday paint, and then you've got the Aura, which is at the top of the line, expensive stuff, right? Benjamin Moore was the first one to come out with the low VOC self-priming paint. Then everybody else started doing self-priming paint for cheaper price. So then they came out with Regal Select, that's also now self-priming low VOC, but it's not as expensive as the Aura, right? And so, and then when you get into Sherwin-Williams, you've got Emerald and you've got all these different grades of paint, right? It's all in the book, actually. I put all of this in the back of the book. I talk about, colors for ceiling, for trim, what sheen to use, which paint to use. I go over, all the self-priming paints for Benjamin Moore and Sherwin-Williams, and it will tell you, so depending on which one you choose, one might not make eggshell, they only make flat and satin, right? One maybe makes eggshell, but they don't make matte, like it depends on which paint you choose, but it's all in the book. Okay. Trying to think what else would be in the book. So in the book, in the very beginning, I talk about undertones and how to see the undertones, but it's very simple. I made it so an 8-year-old could read this and understand it. I don't get into any technical language to, you know, it's very easy to understand because, you know, when I was working in the paint store, I used to have to explain things to people in a very simple way that they could understand. I didn't, you know, and I was really surprised to find out that people have never even seen a color wheel. Like they don't even know like that blue and yellow makes green. Like I can't, you know, so it's, I have to keep it very simple. And I basically just show like 3 different shades of beige and one looks peach, one looks yellow, one looks green. They're all beige, but they're all a little bit different, right? Then we get into the part 2, I go room by room and we talk about kitchens, bathrooms, living rooms, family rooms, bedrooms, guest bedrooms, master bedrooms, kids' rooms, blah, 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 and we talk about how to choose colors. Part 3 is where we are now, where we talk about which sheen to use, trim, what paint to use, all that practical stuff. So when you walk into the paint store and they'll say, you know, what paint do you want? And this is all from my own personal experience, because 30 years ago, when I walked into a paint store and I bought paint for the first time, actually, when my babies were born, I picked yellow and I sent my husband to the paint store to go buy that yellow. And they're like, that is obnoxious, that yellow. You cannot paint the walls that color. Go home and tell your wife she has to pick a different color. This is before I knew any of this stuff, okay? And then, you know, and then another time I'd walk in and they say, well, which sheen do you want? What do you mean? What is a sheen? I don't know what you're talking about. Well, and which paint do you want? I don't know. What's the difference between, you know, I don't know. I was clueless. So everything's in the book. So everything that you would need to know to paint a room is there in the book, okay? All right, that's that. There's the book. And it's available on Amazon. I have a couple here if you want to take a look at them. And that's it. And I will take questions. Before I lose people though, I want to just throw this out. This is completely unrelated. I have an autism foundation. April is Autism Awareness Month. And we've got 2 fundraisers coming up that you're welcome to come to. I have these papers on the front. We are doing, it's called Sip, Savor and Stroll. It's on Saturday, May 9th. It's the day before Mother's Day, where we hop on a bus and we visit 4 different restaurants and we have, you know, food and drinks there. And it's a lot of fun. And then tomorrow we will be at Chopped right here in New Providence. If you go there to eat lunch or dinner, all you have to do, I'm going to be there. The foundation is named after my son, Robbie, so it's called Robbie's World Foundation, and all you have to do is when you go up to the register, say Robbie's World, and they will donate 20% back. No money out of your pocket at all. All you have to do is say Robbie's World when you put your order in, and that's it. Just wanted to put that out there. So, all right, getting back to paint. Do we have questions? Do we have questions online?
How many questions?
No? Anybody in the room? No? Did it all make sense?
Except seeing undertones.
Hey,
That seems to be take a bit of practice.
yeah, the undertone, it's hard, and you know what? Sometimes people are a little colorblind too, and they don't realize it, so what I do in the very beginning is, when I do a color consult, first I show them the warm gray and the cool gray, and then I refine it a little bit and make it a little not so easy to tell, and I'll show them 5 different grays, and I'll say, this one's a little bit purple, can you see that? And some people are like, oh yeah, I see that, and other people like, no, I said, okay, well, that was your colorblind test, so if you can't see the purple, then you can go in the other room and we'll talk, we'll do something, we'll go talk to the other person, so. Yeah, and I also learned that there's something called tetrachromat, which has to do with the facets of your eyeball, like the facets of a diamond. Some people have extra and they can see more colors than other people. So probably most of your artists have it. Yes.
We're getting questions online now.
Mhm.
When you have a busy tile, how do you know what color would be best?
I usually try to find the neutral within that tile. And put that up to try to tone it down a little bit. If you guys didn't hear the question, is if you have a busy tile, how do you find the right color? So if it's busy, there's probably a lot of different options of colors that you can do. Like some bathroom tile is like that, like it'll have beiges and grays and blue, green, and all these different tones in it. So I'll just kind of open up my fan deck on it and just see which ones are starting to match some parts of the tile. And then you just kind of decide, what do you like better? Like if I really would like a green bathroom, do I see a little bit of that green in there? Yeah, hey, let's do that, But neutrals are always what calm everything down. I'd have to really see it.
My husband painted our laundry room cabinets to match the white washer and dryer. It's too blue white. What can be done to tone it down short of repainting?
Oh, okay, so the white cabinets match the washer and dryer. Okay, but what color are the walls? You've painted the cabinets to match the washer and the dryer, right? So they're both a very stark white, right? But what color are the walls? So that would be my question. It is what it is. It's white. If you don't want to repaint the cabinets, then do something different with the walls. You could do like a nice, a nice deep blue.
Light beige or the color.
Yeah, I'd go blue. I'd do like a nice deep, if it's a stark white, I'm guessing it's a cool white, sort of a cool blue white. Is it Chantilly lace? Or decorator white? Might be one of those. And if so, I would do like see the background color of my slides, like a deep kind of a, or like a slate blue or a royal blue or navy blue, something like that. That'll tone that right down.
How do you feel about browns? Are they a passing trend?
Browns are coming in now. But browns were in 15 years ago too and went back out. So, that's what trends do. They're here for 8 to 10 years and then they phase out. So, I've been doing nothing but grays and blues for 10 years and now we're starting to do grays and greens. You'll see beiges, browns, more earthy colors coming in. So, it's the very beginning of brown right now. So if you like it, do it and it'll, live with it for 8 to 10 years and you're gonna get sick of it and then you'll want something else. But it'll be time to repaint anyway.
What's your opinion of Faro and Ball paints?
Faro and Ball is very popular with interior designers. My painter hates it. He told me don't ever pick Faro and Ball ever again because he doesn't like it. It's hard to work with. It depends on who you talk to. If you talk to people from Europe, they think it's the best paint out there. So, from a color standpoint, you can't go wrong because they only have, 30 colors or whatever. And it's very, they're all made to go together and they're all really nice colors. So from a color standpoint, it's great, but as far as the paint itself, I would ask your painter if he likes it or not. And usually you can color match. most brands. That's, yeah, I didn't talk about that, but you can cross over, you know, Benjamin Moore can mix Sherwin colors and Sherwin can make Benjamin Moore colors. They don't guarantee the accuracy though, so it depends on like if you're gonna be really picky about it, you know, sample it first. Home Depot can mix their colors too. You can go to Home Depot and they'll mix a Benjamin Moore color for you, but I don't trust it, you know, because I see all those little undertones and if it's a little bit off, it's gonna annoy me. So. Anything else? That's it? Yes.
If you have a color on a paint chip and you're in the kitchen, you have a chair rail and you want to paint two tones of the same chip,
Yes.
is there a rule of thumb how much lighter or darker you should go for the bottom half?
No, the question is, if there's a chair rail and she wants to do a lighter color on the top and a darker color on the bottom, does it matter how much darker you go? No, it doesn't. It's just personal preference, but it's a lot easier if you stay on that same strip. And usually what I do is I just kind of fold the chip over so that I can see this one with the third one down and look at them right next to each other and, you know, and see how you like them. And again, you can always get the sample eyes. You can just, you know, so you see it bigger and literally just put them, you know, play around with them on the wall. My thing with, and I talk about this in the book, I talk about chair rails, is that I believe that chair rails went up in the 80s when we went wallpaper crazy, right? And we had the flowered wallpaper on the top and the striped wallpaper on the bottom, right? And then people wanted to kind of get rid of it, but they didn't want to get rid of all of it. So they stripped the stripe off the bottom. They left the flowers on the top and stripped it off the bottom, right? And then we were doing, and then we would do two different colors, like yellow on the top, green on the bottom, right? So to me, the two different colors still reminds me of all of that, right? So what I do, especially if it's a dining room, right? Is I'll put the color on the top and then below I put like a white, off-white, or neutral on the bottom, because I want to create the illusion that there's wainscoting on the bottom. And I show a lot of pictures of this in the book where I'll do, let's say I do like a light neutral grayish in the hallway, in the foyer, then I'll put that same light neutral grayish below the chair rail in the dining room and then put like a blue or green or something on top. And that ties those rooms together. Now you have flow. We didn't talk about flow, but I like my rooms to flow and have kind of the same undertones, room to room. So, but it depends on the room. You can always put the same color top and bottom too. But if it's, I don't care if it's light and dark are the same color. I just don't like two totally different colors. Yeah.
What ceiling color complements most wall colors, especially beiges?
Well, what color are you putting on your trim? So so if we talk about like the don't mix your whites, I don't like when I put white dove on the trim, which is creamy and a little bit yellow, and then put a ceiling white on the top, because that white is gonna make the trim look yellow. Okay, so what I'll do is I put white dove on the trim and I'll do white dove 50% on the ceiling, so it's got the same undertones. It's a little brighter, but it's the same. What do you mean by 50%? Let me explain that. So when you mix a can of paint, I always say it's like baking a cake and you've got a can of white paint, that's like the batter. And instead of putting in a tablespoon of tint, they put in half a tablespoon of tint. So it just creates a lighter version of that color. So I could put white dove on the ceiling, but I like it just a little bit lighter than that. So I always do white dove 50% and then white dove on the trim. And that goes, and when I was doing all beiges, I used white dove on the trim all the time.
So her trim is stained and it goes throughout the house.
Oh, well, that's different. Well, then just do white, ceiling white. I mean, ceiling white is the go-to, you know, and ceiling white matches in Benjamin Moore here. Let me show you. Let's see. It's kind of blurry. I don't know if you can see it. It goes super white, white, brilliant white, decorator white. This white, the second white, it's literally just called white. That's the same white as ceiling white. But when I started doing all these grays and off whites, I felt ceiling white looks a little dingy, so I started using super white on my ceilings instead. So that's kind of been my go-to, super white.
This will just have to be the last question, but do you have universally good to go colors, particularly taupe or beige.
I do, but I don't give them out for free. When people hire me and when they, like, a lot of people, they move here from the city and they don't have any furniture because they're coming from a small apartment to a big house, right? I will use my go-to colors, and the reason they're go-to is because they tend to always work in everybody's houses because they match all the furniture that's in style right now. So, yeah. Okay, I guess that's it. Okay, you're welcome. Thanks for coming.